So there was a question about the wind up here today near Seattle in the States. It is especially stormy. And in fact, just up the hill from us here, we're going to be getting a blizzard soon. So hopefully the connection remains stable. And there was a question about practicing in weather like this when it's especially stormy and windy. And so the general answer is that as long as you can make your own weather, like I am by being inside, we have a heater, there's no wind or draft in here, my feet are warm, these kinds of qualities, then it's okay to practice. But you do want to avoid being outside and practicing. The wind buffeting against you causes your body to close up and to tense. In Chinese medicine, we talk about the wind being this penetrating quality, like spears into the body. They call it the spearhead of the 10,000 illnesses. Because if it's cold and windy, the wind seems to drive the cold into your body. And I bet you've felt that. People even talk about the wind being penetrating or icy and stabbing. It has that quality to it. The same way that even if it's hot and windy, and maybe there's dampness outside, the body is far more impacted by that heat and that dampness when the wind comes in, and it seems to push it and drive it into your channels. And because part of the reason that we practice in these settled, comfortable circumstances is to allow our body to become soft and to settle, to let go, we require comfortable places. It's good to make a Qigong nest for yourself, a safe space within which your body can start to let go. And if you're outside and it's very bright or very hot, very cold, very windy, very anything, there's a wild eclipse going on, maybe there's a mariachi band playing 6 feet away from you, these might not be the best circumstances for within which that you can let go. But as long as you can create a space where you feel settled and the environment within which is conducive to you letting go, dropping your defenses, letting things open, letting old trauma trapped in the joints come out, this kind of thing. As long as you're in that state, then it's fine to practice when it's windy outside. And to me, at least, in a way, it's extra cozy. There's this sense of being protected. And that's especially nourishing for me because of the way that I grew up. And so that's my quick answer. And Corey, let me know if that answers the question that you had. That in Chinese medicine, we are not islands. Our bodies don't end right here. We are part of the system. And our health interacts with that system, as the pandemic recently reminded everybody. And as part of this expansive whole, we need to be aware of how things are shifting and changing around us to understand the changes that are happening inside us. There's a famous book on medicine and politics and all kinds of things called the Huangdi Neijing, which is the Yellow Emperor's classic, and many thousands of years old. And there's this great description of if it's the summer and we have an unseasonably cold day, how does the body respond? Because our bodies tend to respond in a certain way. If it's the winter and we have one of those weird days where it's suddenly spring, even hot, and we all go outside and play in the weather, and then the next day it's cold again, our bodies react to it negatively. As much as for most of us who are sensitive, we get on a plane, we go to a new environment, and our bodies go, what is this? There's a kind of settled consistency required for us to feel settled and consistent. And so that's what it's like with the weather, with the environment as a whole. We have to understand how we're a part of that in order to allow ourselves to heal. And now I will read the comment. Let's see. I'll draw this a little closer to me. Oops. Sorry, I just unplugged my own computer. Maybe I can plug it over here. Technology. Let's see. That's right. So Corey is mentioning that when we are gathering qi, when we are resonating with and harmonizing ourselves with the qi of the environment, which is very common for practices, for instance, like the Hunyuan Qigong set. That is, it specializes in this sense of relating with and becoming part of the larger environment, healing ourselves with the external environment. It's a wonderful practice, but it's not what we're doing here. And so it's much safer in that case, that we don't need to be in perfectly stable spaces, inside and outside, in order to gather from them. But you're right that if you're doing the Hunyuan Qigong set, you wouldn't necessarily want to reach out to the storm and try to harmonize with the storm, but instead find something else that represents sky energy, earth energy, these kinds of Daoist concepts. And we could talk about it more later if you're interested. But within this set, at least, we're not working on that at all. We're just letting go of the tissues, letting go of our mind, and not worried too much about harmonizing with the external environment. Yeah, the Hunyuan in particular. Very good question. And Chris, you asked about the chart. I sent you a little message about it. The chart that you have, I have no idea why they marked the colors that they do. That's not a standard thing. Every chart is going to be different. And so I can't tell you what they mean by how they choose to color the points. You'd have to send me a photo of the chart. Hopefully there's a key or something on it that describes what those points are for. But it's just a strange chart that you have. Hold this a little closer. Wonderful. So let's get nice and comfortable here. Great questions. Feet resting comfortably on the floor. Hopefully your legs that are about a 90-degree angle, more or less, just resting beneath you. If you're sitting, drop the weight into that space just in front of the sitting bones. Ischial tuberosity in your behind. Soften your legs. Soften your feet. Resting on this point, allow the whole body to soften through the frame onto that point. And this is to answer another question. ZhiCheng Shifu sometimes likes to talk about those rain sticks, which are, maybe people only in the States will know what those are. It's a cactus that's filled with seeds, and you tip the cactus and the seeds fall through this hollow husk and make sound like rain. Or if you have a clear tube filled with liquid and sparkles, you tip the tube and the sparkles slowly settle through the liquid. And that is the kind of experience we want to have here. You allow your own internal sparkles to settle through you into whatever it is that's holding you up. The ground if you're standing, the chair if you're seated. And the more that you can let go, and the more those aspects of you release and settle, because that's what happens when you let go of something, they settle. There's this sense of lightness, and the crown of your head released upward. With every exhalation, allow that settling, that release to happen through your body. All of the weight, all of the excess thinking, any turbulent emotions, they just release and settle down through you into the chair, into the ground. With every inhalation, that sense of stillness and internal quiet deepens. And then you exhale and release even further. Just another minute or so of this deepening. One of the questions was about softening. And it's important to recognize that in the beginning, we don't understand softening. We only understand the most basic level of relaxation, either the most tense or somehow less tense. We have one value of letting go. And it's usually in the hands or sometimes in the face that we start to get a sense that it's possible to release even more deeply. There's this accumulation of softness that occurs over time, and it changes everything. That if you are to become aware of your face, for instance, and you start to release and relax, and your awareness continues there, and your intention is to continue to release further. Usually after a moment, you'll feel your tissues spread even more. Maybe another area that you were holding lets go. And then perhaps another space deeper releases further, and you'll feel your face changing shape. Base of your tongue releases, your breath begins to shift as this softness deepens. The hands are another place that people begin to experience this because we have more awareness in these places. But the secret is that you can deepen that stillness and that deep letting go throughout your whole body. And that softness, it's as though it accumulates in the tissues and it becomes something else. It begins to transform how our body functions, how it relates to itself. And we slowly allow that softness to find its way, to infiltrate into the body. So instead of the wind and the cold finding its way in, we use our gentle intent to ease and soften, and this intention itself begins to penetrate into the body, and the tissues let go, and they begin to become empty. And as they empty and make space, they fill with what in this context we'll refer to as qi. And then things become interesting. But the first thing to do is to don't. We practice letting go. So let's begin warming up the hands. Only warm hands in the body, and then gentle circles. Very crown of the head. And as a reminder, for those of you who are just joining us, if you don't leave a comment, then I can't know that you're in here. And if anybody here is new and has never done this before, please let me know, and I'll include more information, more instruction. But if only the people are in here that are more experienced, then I'll spend more time in stillness and add new movements. Hi, Steph. Both directions. Circulating all through the point here up on the corner of the head. The name of the point is literally corner of the head. Toe weight, stomach 8, if you want to look it up. You do want to emphasize a movement coming from that point and going back. But all of these lines on the scalp and the sides of the head can be released. Remember just the weight of the hand, scrubbing and warming. Back of the head, that line at the base of the skull and the top of the neck. Back of the neck, and that point below C7, the big bone at the base of the neck. Take your time to warm and release all of these places, especially on windy days like this. Make them glow with warmth and life. Just as a reminder for those of you who have been practicing for a little while, if my hand and elbow come up, my shoulder actually goes down. My shoulder blade sinks, doesn't lift. That does take some practice, but since I know that a number of you have some experience with this stuff, I can mention more difficult things like that. Comfortable, upright posture, taking your time. This is one of the places that cold loves to sink in first, that space below C7 on the spine. Really let it warm, glowing with life. Softening around the eyes, the space just behind the eyes. And let that warmth penetrate in, quieting your mind. Excess thinking, to me and to a lot of my teachers, feels like a gripping of the mind, like your mind is a muscle that's growing tight. And so allow this sense of softness to penetrate in all the way to the head, where we let go and relax. And your thoughts slow down. Softening those points alongside the nose, just in the crease of the nose, this labial groove here. Allow the warmth and the movement to penetrate into those points, stimulating and opening them. Again, for most of these, I'm doing 36 in both directions, but feel free to do as many as you need to get that sense of opening, especially if your sinuses are clogged today because of the wind. And then softening down from that line all the way up to the scalp, emphasizing those moments when you are helping spread open this area. circling around the eyes. Avoid pressing into the soft parts of the eye and emphasize those opening, soothing directions. Communicating gentleness with your touch. Both directions. The space between the eyebrows, as well as the end of the eyebrows themselves. There's a point there called bladder 2, fish border. I think because the eyebrows look like fish on some people. Strange, strange fish. Softening and warming this area, and then spreading them open. Make sure that this is as much an experience of practicing softening the hands, softening the arms and the shoulders and your mind. Soft circles. Easing your jaw. Allow your jaw to be slightly cracked open. Soften. Both directions. You might notice a sense of warmth penetrating into the tissues, especially into that space just between the skin and the muscle, but also the spaces around the musculature. The muscles themselves will probably pick up on the theme and start to soften open, and then there will be more space there for you to release into. It is amazing how much space can be created through this opening process. You will be surprised. Then this line just in front of the ear, or this funny little cartilaginous flap. Massaging just in front of the tragus. Again, keep your jaw slightly open to help open that space. You'll probably feel the movement that happens in your jaw as you move it in this area. Both directions. And because I know that we have some people that carry a lot of jaw tension in the class today, if you were to take that point just at the front of the ear and move forward a bit toward your nose, and then open and close your jaw widely, there will be a hole that you'll feel gets filled in and released as you open and close the jaw. It's maybe a centimeter in front of the ear point, depending on your body. You'll have to open and close your jaw to find if that's the right hole. That's a point called stomach 7. It is a wonderful spot for, again, helping to release and relieve the jaw. Also for migraines, if you happen to have those. And so let's spend a moment moving a bit forward into that point and make gentle circles there. Not part of the regular set, but useful in case you happen to have these issues. And if in each class I introduce a point that seems especially useful to you, please do write it down, pay attention, and include it in your own practice, even if we don't do it in this regular set. Both directions. The last couple days I emphasized spots to release for humans who menstruate. And that might be uncomfortable at certain times of the month. And so today I'm going to emphasize slightly different points. Every class I'm hoping will be a little bit different. And then there will be this big library online for people. Now, moving between the jaw and these points, scrubbing the fingers up and down. Also, one of the fingers just behind the ear, massaging the back of the ear and this whole area. Up and down, 36 times, but really as many as required to heat them up. And then for the rest of the ear series, because you won't be able to hear me talk, we will massage the ears themselves, spiraling outward. We can spend time massaging around the rim of the ear, warming, especially the earlobe, tugging on the ears slightly. You can flick the backs of your ears if that feels good. We'll also scrub our palms directly over the ears, as well as, again, behind and just around the ears. Working this whole area until the ears themselves feel nice and warm. And then toward the end, we will compress the ears 9 to 18 times. Please don't push hard enough to cause pain. And then on the last compression, tap your fingers against the back of the head. Hey, Anna, welcome. excuse me, this one. Massaging that space between the eyebrows and the forehead, just beneath the nose, beneath the lips. Both directions. Emphasizing this soothing, expansive quality in whichever direction you're going. Gently releasing and soothing all of this tissue in here. Sides of the hands. As well as with the fingertips. These are very similar, but the sense of depth can change slightly. But both communicate this deep release. Remember that continually you are softening your hands, increasing the comfort, maintaining that intent of gentle, loving softness, allowing that softness to accumulate in your tissues. These are these areas that are often held, especially as we become frustrated or fearful. And so we soothe this. You can't force it to release. You have to ask. With the same logic that we were talking about earlier of how to behave on a windy day, we are communicating this quality of safety and comfort to our mind, to our heart, to our tissues, settling down, restoring. And then closing, simply emphasizing this release down through the body. Letting go of anything holding on and allowing it to sink. Again, to settle through the medium of your body, your awareness settling beneath your palms. Just a few breaths of meditation. And just as a reminder, because I've been hearing that people do this practice and take breaks in between, especially if they're watching this later on video, it's these moments when we settle and we pause. Once that stillness deepens and some of our awareness anchors here, then it's safer to go off and take a short break to drink a bit of tea, do what you have to do, go to the restroom if you need to. Try not to stop right in the middle of a set that is actively, possibly drawing your chi up, because that's not healthy for you. Today we're emphasizing this understanding of ourselves in relationship to our environment. Where I am up here in the western part of the United States, it is very blustery and stormy. We're about to have a blizzard just up the hill, but it's warm in here. Remember that the environment impacts us. The cold, the wind, even the heat and the damp, these qualities, the dryness, have an impact on us. We are not islands. And so we avoid practicing in the wind, in the cold. We find a space that is safe and settled, within which it becomes easier to soothe our body, to allow all of this old holding and old trauma to start to find its way out, and that softness to accumulate in the tissues. And so because the wind and the cold in our bodies tend to really impact the upper part of our body that's exposed, if you've been out in the wind and you have that sense of, ooh, it was just a little bit too much, you feel yourself sniffling, your throat's getting a little sore, that sense of ringing in your ears, perhaps your skin's tight, everybody experiences it differently. But you might have a sense of what I mean. Oh, I was outside a little too long. It was a little too cold. Especially as you get older and your defensive chi tends to weaken, that becomes easier to happen to you. And so you want to take the time, spend 15 minutes, 20 minutes, go through this whole set through here, scrubbing, warming, releasing, maybe go sit in a hot bath and have a sweat, drink some tea which will help you sweat. And this quality is very healing for the body. We call it releasing the exterior. And this is a very important thing in Chinese medicine. Moving on, softening here the front of the shoulder. This entire area here, this is the front of the shoulder. All of this attaches. We want to release it outward. Some wonderful points in through here, emphasizing for us some liver points and some lung points up in here, as well as beneath the arm, softening that space within the armpit, heart 1 point. Again, just to remind people, if your hand comes up, your shoulder does not come up with it. Your shoulder blade sinks down as your hand lifts. If you can do that, then just by softening your shoulder, your hand sets up here. And then just the weight of your arm is that which is enough to release the tissues in this area. So if you find this exhausting or uncomfortable, it's because you're doing a lot extra. Instead, just start to learn how to release your shoulder blade. It's a very commonly frozen place because of excess tension. And allow that movement to happen effortlessly. Warming and easing the upper arm. You find for yourself if there's any spaces that feel stuck and spend time there. And then large intestine 11. Just here. Not sinking in deep. You're not trying to press into the musculature. You're warming and soothing that space beneath the skin. If you push too far in, it just causes everything to freeze, to become stuck. Then beneath it, within the elbow here, lung 5. Remember that every one of you will have your own patterns of tension, trauma, and holding. Athletes, keyboard athletes. And so if you find an area that requires some soothing and softening, please do spend time there. Space between these two tendons here, as well as the center at the back of the arm. Inner and outer gates. Heart and small intestine. Gently grasping this area. This is another space where force accumulates a lot for athletes or carpenters, people that are grasping a lot if you do body work. Please take the time to ease this area open, very gently. In the clinic, if I help to reset the shape of somebody's wrist, this is a common thing that people require. I'll often have to work and release this area, and then the wrist opens and resets into the proper position. Large intestine 4, just here. This is a wonderful space for this releasing of the wind, releasing the exterior that I was talking about earlier. Get in there with any of your fingers. And if you'd like, again, you can reach across to the other side of the hand. Feed 2 birds with 1 scone. Again, there are no muscles in the fingers, but there's plenty of tissue that requires soothing. Imagine how much we do through our bodies this way in these poor little spaces. There's a lot of accumulation here. You want to help ease them open. Lengthen the fingers a little bit. You can add a little twist if you'd like. Warmth. This helps circulation reach the fingertips. If you were to look, you'd see them turn a little bright red as you draw it down. You don't even have to push very hard. So especially if you have circulation issues, please do spend time here. And again, I know that some of you watching this are developing or have a great deal of pain here at the base of the thumb joint. This is very common. So you can also spend time just warming and soothing this area. And I do recommend warming hand soaks if that's helpful. Sometimes heat makes the pain worse if there's local inflammation. But very often, if on a day like today here where I live, the cold is getting in and causing your joints to ache, and you spend 6 months of the year in pain, please do take the time to warm these joints, both with movements like these, but also with Chinese medical herbal soaks, even just hot water or a warm pad. Be kind to yourself. You will be surprised at how easy it can be to heal. Let's do this side. Dell came by to say hello to everybody and to compliment my shirt. A man of mystery and excellent taste in wardrobe. Soften the shoulder, lengthen the neck, release the head upward, make space here as you create this movement. And again, I have a different body shape than some of you. Some of you have larger breast tissue, and this may feel impossible. So feel free to try it this way, if that works better. Or maybe this way. Or, hey, you come over here, rub my shoulder that way. That can work too. But please don't contort yourself or do anything uncomfortable. I'm not there to help. If you have questions, you can always feel free to send me videos of you or your cats, and we can help you find ways to release these areas. And for those of you who might be pregnant and who might have a very nice partner around, I highly recommend the ancient method of, hey, you come over here, rub my shoulders. Very effective. Just here at the very end of this line of the elbow. You probably cannot see on camera, but endlessly I have little burn scars across my arms from baking and cooking. One day I will learn. Spending a bit extra time here today on this point, again, just with this theme of releasing the exterior. This point here next to the thumb, large intestine 11, is also famous for treating frontal headache, very common thing for people to experience. Stuffy nose. This is one of those points that turns you into a superhero with your friends. If you're out at a dinner and someone says, oh, I have a headache, and they go like this, you ask to borrow their hand and hold this point for a while. And very often, it will feel better within 10 minutes or so. So please do take the time to help. Once you learn the medicine, there's a kind of an obligation to share it with others. And it's so much fun. How is your shoulder? Is it coming up as you lift your elbow, or is it sinking down? I can see you in there. Closing. Remember that even with meditation, we are emphasizing this don'ting quality, this doing of the non-doing, wu wei, this quality of I'm allowing my awareness to rest in the present moment. My awareness wanders off because my mind is tense. What I do not want to do is add even more tension to it by now forcing it to come back and trying to hold it in the present moment, this white knuckle grip on reality. Instead, I want to soften my mind, to relax into the present moment. So I'm here, I'm exhaling, my body's softening, my mind wanders away, I start thinking about dinner yesterday or something. I don't force my mind back once I realize I'm over here. What I do instead is I release that distraction. I let it go. Then, very naturally, because I'm here, mind drifts back into the present moment, into what I'm doing. What I've done is I've softened my mind rather than tightened it. And the end result of those two practices are completely different, although they're both called meditation. Please use the latter rather than the former. Please don't. Please soften. There is a better way. Somehow the series has become a demonstration of my love of 7 cups tea. As well as the wonderful charity called the Awesome Socks Club. Pretty awesome. All of the money goes to a wonderful cause. It's worth looking up. The Awesome Socks Club. Softening the solar plexus, easing them open, both directions. One of you was saying that you tend to do this set right after eating, and so you avoid working this area. Totally understandable. Maybe do them later. And then, so from Ren 14, 15 to 12, space between the navel and that point. Allowing that sense of warmth to soak in. If you tend to be somebody that carries a lot of frustration or anger you may notice that it tends to accumulate and cause gripping in this area of your body, all the way across the center. And by doing this, you'll probably notice that deep sigh, a certain kind of sigh that penetrates into this area. And it's okay if you have a fleeting rush of some of those feelings as they release out of your body. The goal is to just let them release. Don't fight them, don't chase them, just let them go. Oftentimes, thoughts and feelings are trapped in the tissues of the body, and as we release them and relieve them, if we let it happen the right way, by not interfering with it, they'll be gone, and life will feel very different. Cross the navel. Notice if your legs are soft or not. Softening this area here in the front of the gua, this inguinal groove, the crease where your pants would fold. Just below and in front of that band of tendons right there, softening that point. Stomach 30. I don't know if you can see, you can allow this sort of downward and outward movement as you soften this area. All of this can be eased open. This can be easier if you're lying flat on the ground or in a comfy chair where this is easier to open. You don't have to do it in this awkward way that I am, trying to fit myself on camera. Hands sliding around the waist, shoulders staying comfortable, posture staying comfortable and upright. Use whatever part of the hand is easiest to reach and to warm this area, even if it's somebody else's hands. Emphasizing the downward direction on that musculature alongside the spine. This is a very good area to release and warm. And again, referencing our discussion today of keeping the body warm and safe from the weather, the climate, please keep this area warm and this whole area warm throughout the whole winter. Your feet as well, if possible. And then massaging across at the level of the navel. And then along the spine. Emphasizing the upward direction. And then with your palm and your fingertips, rubbing along the tailbone from the middle of the low back all the way down to the tip of the tailbone and back. Also emphasizing this downward direction. If you need to take a break to soften and relax your shoulders, feel free. Eventually, this will feel easy. scrubbing until your tailbone and that area in your lower back feels nice and toasty. And then, just below the level of that iliac crest, that pelvic line that you feel, at the top where the buttock connects to that bone, softening that whole area with your fingertips. And then the very center of the glute. And again, if, as I mentioned yesterday, if you've had hip replacements or other surgery done, you may want to spend time soothing. If you have scars, you can release any scar tissue, aid circulation in these areas. But please do be gentle, especially gentle in those areas. Just above on the outside corner of the knee. Most of these 36 times in both directions. But the actual number is how many it takes for the space to soften, open, and for warmth to sink in, and then a sense of warmth to radiate back out. This is a mixture of the movement where it's just the skin moving over the surface, as well as a little bit of friction right in that local area. Probably one will feel better than the other, and so do that one. As long as you have this sense of gentleness and you're using the amount of pressure required to sink in just below the skin, then you don't have to worry about doing it wrong. The inside of the knee, just above the knee, as well as the flat side here, the inside of the knee, kind of the stomach 8, spleen 10 area if you're writing points down. Keep your shoulders soft, your hands relaxed. Remember, you're accumulating softness in your hands and your forearms and allowing that softness to communicate to tissues that might not have learned how to release yet. The space just beneath the knee, in that fold between those two tendons, bladder 40. Wei Zhong, the name of the point. I also use my hands to get a little bit more softening here on the outside of the knees. But the emphasis is that space beneath the knees. Again, just as a reminder, my shoulders are not rolling forward. My shoulder blades stay back. My hands simply release under. I'm not rolling my upper spine. I'm not rounding my lower back, pulling down or doing this. If I can, all I'm doing is flexing at my hip a little bit. My spine stays straight all the way through the top of my head. My shoulder blades stay soft. And I help relieve that area so that my back is open and my chest is open. My neck is long. My belly is soft. My lower back is easy. My legs are released. Now moving down to stomach 36, just on the outside of the shin. Emphasizing this downward direction for all of these points, toward the toes, as well as inward to nourish the point. I'm going to do spleen 9 at the same time. And now gallbladder 34, a little bit out and above that last point. And again, if you have difficulty finding this point, there are some wonderful tutorials online on YouTube you can find. But in general, just the side of the leg, alongside the knee, below the knee, that will be. And again, I like to work these points on the inside of the leg with my thumb at the same time. But the emphasis is over here. Now, "60 times in both directions. Warmth and softness from your hands soaking into the tissues around the knees. Actively practicing kindness, unconditional friendliness. This is a very Daoist version of a Buddhist metta meditation, loving kindness meditation. Your knees have been deserving of some love for a while. Fingertips sinking in gently into the tissues just beneath the skin, pulling up above the knee. And again, you'll see me sitting like this, but I always want to add this caveat that you do not have to copy this position if it's uncomfortable. We're simply settling our fingers into that bifurcation of the gastrocnemius, the center of the calf. You can at the same time soften that musculature along the shin and work your way down the Achilles. I'm assuming that everyone here has been doing this for a little while now, and so I'm including slightly more complicated variations. But if it's too difficult to do any complicated mixture, then you can simply do one at a time. And I'm wondering if, for those of you that have been doing this for about a week now, if any of you are noticing that this point is perhaps less tender than it was. Or if it was numb before, maybe now it's more tender, which would be a good sign. Please make sure to be gentle. And then plucking across the calf muscle itself, just grasping the calf muscle, separating the tissues out, softening, especially if there's an area that feels rock hard. I know for a number of people, it's as though there's a swollen or stuck place in this area of their lower leg and calf. So you want to help ease that open a bit, but be gentle. Don't give your leg cause to tense up to protect itself. And then warming this area, just one hand's breadth above the ankle, the inner ankle. Warming that line where the bone and the soft tissue meet, as well as that space just below the ankle here. Spleen 6, kidney 6, this whole line, kidney 3. And especially if this feels cold or tight or very tender, as well, spend time here, gently allowing this warmth to soak in, keeping your hands soft. Bottom of your feet, that space between the first and second toe, side of the foot, right in here. But emphasizing that kidney 1 point, Yongquan, bubbling spring on the bottom of the foot. For those of you doing this every day, even for those of you following this video in the future, I'm curious to know how your progress goes every 10 days or so. So we've got another 90 plus days to go on this particular journey. And I'd like to know how your tissues are transforming. The most obvious way will be flexibility, softness of the tissues, or like this one, a lessening of tenderness, an opening to the point. Every person I've ever talked to that took the 100 days to do this, and there's been quite a number in this community, talks about how transformative it can be. Just take one season. Change your body. And I know there was at least one person that's in this class that I helped with the resetting of the ankle position. And oftentimes there's this difficulty that comes right here in the front of the foot because of the shape of the ankle and what's happening with the tibia. And so in between those resetting experiences, maybe spend extra time reaching across the top here and keeping this warm and soft. Top of the foot, bottom of the foot. And if you'd like, while you're sitting in the chair or when you sit on the ground, that same movement that we do to the arms, we can do to the legs. Brushing down to the feet, drawing up. Wherever is easiest and most comfortable for you to do it. If you do it in a chair, the way I am, the reason I'm mentioning this is because see how I'm flexing up my hips. I'm not doing this. Soften your hips down as best you can. If you cannot reach, then go as far as you can without contorting yourself or adding tension. Don't do the technique at the expense of the actual point of the practice. Eventually, if you keep practicing, this becomes very easy because your hips soften. There's nothing holding you up. You don't have to try to stretch and push against it. You just let go of that which is holding you from doing it. And you stand up. It's very simple. Just takes time. Persistent, compassionate release. And enough tea. Circling the feet. Allowing the knees to move in and out. Getting that point of contact with the ground. Rotating. You can use your hands to help support this movement. Both directions. And then extending the kidney channel. Allow your back to be soft. lengthening up, releasing down from your hips. Keep this part of your thighs soft. Gentle gripping with your hands and your feet, but not tightening. You're not trying to make a strong fist. You're just closing your hands and your feet. Raking up the legs, engaging the feet. You can inhale, gathering to your back. Inhaling, inhale, soften, open your mouth, fall. And just as a reminder, thighs stay soft. You want your legs releasing this way the whole time. Don't tighten up toward your body. Likewise, as you soften long, don't fall down toward your thighs. Lengthen over the top. Continuing to lengthen your spine. Softening your spine. My hands are just here to keep me from turning my shoulders or twisting my head. All of this is stable. This is all about turning and softening my waist. And then letting go, letting all of that fall back toward the center. Tapping your teeth together. If your teeth are sensitive, you can simply press your teeth together. I'm going to do this, let's say 18 times. With all of these tappings and moving of the teeth, make sure that you're not causing tension or pain. You can do as many of these as you like, as long as you're awakening your teeth and your gums and not damaging them. I know for some people, they have very sensitive dentistry going on, and so we don't want to overdo it. For the next one, we will circle the tongue around the front of the teeth, around the base of the gums. This time, let's try that 3 times in both directions, and then 3 times along the inside of the teeth, the inner part of the gums. Same thing, 3 times in both directions. See if you can get all the way around the teeth as best you can, but keep your throat soft. Don't use this as an excuse to retighten all of this work that we did to soften. And then take that saliva that's accumulated, and you're going to swallow that down, and imagine that you can feel that the movement of the saliva sink all the way down to the level of the navel. Now we'll spend just a few minutes lying on your back if you're comfortable lying down. You can sit comfortably in your chair and do more of that softening and stilling practice. But as you're in this position, if you have a tendency toward back stiffness and pain, feel free to put a little something beneath your knees that helps to soften the back. Perhaps something a little beneath the head to relieve this area. If you need to, you could place something beneath your arms. Again, create a warm, comfortable nest for yourself to have these moments of softening, especially when you're practicing on your own and you can rest in this position for 10 or 15 minutes. It should be remarkably comfortable, and you simply observe the sense of warmth and openness that's appeared in your body. You can either place your hands on your belly, on this inguinal groove, or on the ground, wherever is easiest for your body type. The breath is soft and comfortable. Noticing your whole body vibrating and warm. And then when you're ready, you'll roll on your side. Find yourself back in a seated posture, comfortably so. Once again, allowing your whole body to settle. You don't have to sit on the floor like this. Sit on a bolster or a chair, anything that you'd like. This is just easy for my hips. Too many years of seated meditation. Thank you very much. So let me look at some of the questions. If there are more questions, please feel free to put them in. Sometimes they seem to take a minute or two to come in. And so please be patient. Pull my computer over here. Take a look. Let's see. Oh, Chris asked again about the right way versus the wrong way of releasing trauma. The idea is that as you soften your tissues and your body opens and you quiet your mind, your resistances, that which is holding these patterns in place, start to soften, and they can change. They can begin to change with the seasons, with how you actually are, and things settle into a more appropriate position when before they were stuck in maybe something that wasn't quite as helpful. But as they float up, all kinds of things will happen that you don't need to worry about. Maybe you visualize what happened to you. Maybe old emotions come out. I've had people come and they have entire flashbacks occur depending on the level of the trauma. And again, if you need professional help with those processes, I highly recommend them. This is for anybody who needs them. There are people out there that help you through this process full time. This is all they do and all they want to do. And they can be wonderfully loving and empathetic with this process. And the goal will be, if they follow this particular method, to help those old patterns emerge and just evaporate. And the things that stop them Are you grabbing hold of them, identifying with them, rehashing them? Oh, I remember when I was 6 and that person pushed me down on the playground. I wonder where they are now. I should look them up and yell at them on Facebook. Ruined their life the way they ruined mine. You can do that. Or you can remember this playground bully. And I don't want to think about that. I'm too spiritual to remember things like that. Spiritual people don't think about bullies when they were kids. And you push it back down again. Or, not that any of you would do that. You're all far too spiritual to to ever think about things like that. The goal in this case would be to simply allow them to come up and to go away. They just pass through you in the way that when we're standing, gravity and weight passes through you and you release it into the ground. You don't have to do anything with it. You just stop holding on. And the same is true with any kind of stagnation in the mind, in the body, in the heart. We simply allow that stagnation to release, and then things move and settle on their own. They happen on their own. Dao Fa Ci Ren. The way of the Dao is natural, automatic. All you do is make space for it, and it happens on its own. That's the right way. This is this doing, non-doing. Don't try to do stuff with it. Don't try to fix everything. Instead, make space, and things fix themselves. I hope that helps. Stomps and feet slaps. Simply stimulating the bottom of the feet that are often stagnant and stuck. We tend to treat our feet as hooves. My instructor, Master ZhiCheng, he says that the feet are hands on the ends of your legs. They've slowly changed a bit as they've evolved over the years, but they still have this soft quality, or they should. But instead we stomp around on them, we ignore them and beat them up. And so this sort of soft opening, gentle awakening process can be good for them. But don't do it too much.